Hello all, welcome back to the BioRocks channel. In this video today we are going to learn about the transportation of water and minerals, transportation of water and minerals in the plants. Okay, we know that this is being done by the vascular bundle called as xylem. Okay, so we'll be learning about this, but let me put this particular process in a very simple way. Actually, the plants are utilizing two mechanisms in order to transport the water and minerals. The first mechanism that we'll see is going to be the root pressure. Okay. And the second thing that we're going to learn, the second mechanism is going to be utilization of transpiration in transpiration of water and minerals. Now we'll start a video with which by looking at this particular mechanism of transpiration of water and minerals by using the root pressure in the plants of height of a couple of feet. Okay, but if it's going to be very tall trees like in the evergreen forest or very large and very tall trees, then we have to the plants, the trees are going to utilize a transpirational pull to the pull the water to the very large heights. Okay, so first I'm starting up with the root pressure, children. So let me go to a new page. Yeah, let me take see, for instance, if this is going to be my tree trunk and these are my roots which have been present. Okay, these are the roots. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll consider one particular cell here. Okay, let this particular one be the cell epidermal having this root hair. Okay, usually root hairs are going to help in root hairs increase are going to increase surface area surface area of absorption. Okay, so this is the rule, this is the importance of our root hairs here. So now what happens is basically around your roots we have abundancy of the soil which is having the water molecules around. Okay, let me draw the water molecules. We are having the water molecules, and secondly what we are having is we are even having lots of minerals which are present here. So there are even minerals present here. So now what happens is basically if you look at this particular cell of the root, this particular cell has already solutes in its cytoplasm. Okay, but there are very less solutes present here. So in order to build a gradient and to pull the water inside, now, what this cell is going to do is it is going to actively transport. Let me take this cell separately. Okay, this is a cell what I'm drawing with the root hair, and it is already comprising of solutes in its cytoplasm, but the solute level concentration is less. So now what the plant smartly does is it is going to actually actively transport. Is nothing but this particular cell here is going to have good number, n number, very good number of mitochondria. Okay, they are going to have a very good number of mitochondria which will be producing ATP molecules which will be used in active transportation, which will be used in the active transportation. What is active transportation? In order to transport something across the membrane, if you invest ATP molecules, then we are going to call it as active transportation process, children. So already I told there are mitochondria, there is even production of ATP here. So now what the cell does is it is going to actively transport, is nothing but it is going to invest a ATP molecule, and now it is going to, what it does is it is going to take in the minerals here. So it is going to take in the minerals. So these minerals are nothing but what minerals, or we are even going to call them as what ions. So now as you are adding more number of minerals, what are you doing, children, to this particular cell now? Inside the cell now, the same cell, if you are going to see the cell, the amount of the solutes you have increased more. So by that what happens, the amount or concentration of the water is thereby reduced, but the level of solutes are increasing. So what happens now, the water potential, the water potential which is being present is going to be decreased, right? So we can even term it as the water potential is going more negative as you are going to add up more number of solutes by active transportation process from across this particular membrane root here to that of your cell here. And the amount of the water molecules present here outside when compared to that of this cell is going to be very high. Here the water amount is very less. So since the water molecules are less, the water potential is less, or what we call as water potential is growing negative. So this is a smart move made by these particular cells here. So now what happens is, children, since we know that according to our osmosis, the movement of water molecules from a greater water potential. What is water potential? Is nothing but the concentration is more and the kinetic energy of the water molecules is more. I'll make a separate video to explain you what are these in the simple logics. Okay, but remember that water molecules are more, the kinetic energy of the water molecules is more. We call it as water potential is more here. But here the water potential is less here. So obviously what is going to happen? We know that the water molecules are going to move from a concentration. How they are going to move is they are going to move from a higher water potential area into lower water potential area across a semi-permeable membrane. Then we should call this particular mechanism as osmosis. We are going to call the same logic is being applied here. And now what is happening is, as the water potential has decreased inside a cell because of the movement of the solutes, because of the active transportation, and since the surrounding soil is having the water potential more, the water obviously moves inside the cell. Now this is going to happen, but you can't see the water moving out because these are the blunt ends. So now what you can see that the water can move up across in the same way from the cortical area to that of your xylem vessels, and it will be moving up till it is going to reach your stomata and it is going to get transpired out. It gets transpired out. So this is important. I hope now you understood, children, that the cell has actively transported the minerals, thereby decreasing the water potential by attracting the molecules from a high water potential. In the same manner, the water will be moved across the cortical cells and will be move across towards till the xylem, and the xylem just travels till the height, the tip of this particular shoot apexes, and from there, from the leaves, from the underside of the leaves where the stomata have been present, they are being transpired into the environment. They are being transpired into the environment, forming the cloud, forming the weather conditions and all. This is a way, in simple terms, how the water is being moved into the plants. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll give you another thing which will explain you that this particular thing, what I explained here, is going to be the root pressure mechanism, the first mechanism which has been employed in the plants of a height of a couple of feet, not very tall plants. Okay, so this is good enough in order to pull the water to the tip of the plants. Okay, and getting transpired as water molecules out is this is for the all the plants which are having only a couple of feet of height. But now talking about the tall trees, how do they actually gather up the water or transport to the from the root tip to that of the shoot tip is going to be a basic interesting idea that we need to understand, children. So for that reason, what I'll do is I'm telling you that we are going to speak about the transpirational pull, how this is going to actually, what you call is attract the water molecules and pull the water in these tall trees from a root tip to that of your shoot tip. So I'm going to explain you this. See, your water molecules are going to have a property of adhesion to the xylem vessel walls. Okay, how and they even have the cohesion tension forces that you're learning in your syllabus. I'm making this as a very simplistic and very interesting topic. So check out that the water molecules which are being present, actually, let me draw, they are a bent structure molecule. Okay, this is your water molecule which is having the bent structure like this, children. So this is your water molecule, which is a polar molecule, but on the whole, your water molecule is neutral. But what happens is, just because oxygen is electronegative, it pulls the electrons towards itself in the electron cloud, where they are sharing the electrons. But as oxygen is highly electronegative, it keeps the electron towards it, so it becomes slightly electronegative here. As well as since electrons are being moved away from the hydrogens, the hydrogens are being considered to be that is electropositive. They are going to be electropositive, children. So this is what you can see in a neutral polar water molecules. What are poles here? Electronegativity and electropositivity are the two poles present here. Okay. And remember that these water molecules, they do even have attractive power between them. That is, between two water molecules. Now what happens is, there is an attractive pull because these are of two different charges, right? The positivity and the negativity. The electronegative oxygen and the electropositive hydrogen are going to have attraction or electrostatic, that is an attraction between both of them because of their charges. And this now what is going to be called as, this is being called as a hydrogen bonds. We are going to call this itself is being called as a hydrogen bond. That is being actually, hydrogen bonds can be seen between the hydrogen atom to that of what I call as a fun is nothing but fluorine, oxygen and nitrogen. So this is the way you remember that hydrogen, the bonds between the hydrogen to that of fluorine, hydrogen to that of oxygen, hydrogen to that of nitrogen, are all the hydrogen bonds what I'm drawing here. I hope, children, you're understanding that the negative oxygen, electronegative oxygen, and the electropositive hydrogen are having what we call is a strong electrostatic attractive force that makes up a bond, and that is going to be your hydrogen bonds. Okay, so this is going to make your what we call as your water molecules to be as a film, a continuous film inside these particular transportation channels of xylem vessels, okay, across from the root tips to that of your shoot tips. So this is the way they are having these hydrogen bonds, attractive powers, which are making them to be as a film, not, it's a continuous film of water molecules. Okay, as well as you can see that in the xylem vessels, you can even see that there are some proteins, transport proteins, right? So these transport proteins are made up of amino acids, which is nothing but they do have these nitrogen molecules, okay, nitrogen atoms. And you know that nitrogen atom is also slightly electronegative. This is also slightly electronegative, children. So now what happens is, obviously you are developing an attractive power between the nitrogen as well as hydrogen, which is electropositive. So this is also being built up again. I told you that the bonds between the hydrogen and the nitrogen is also going to be hydrogen bonding only though. So this is a strong attractive power, what I called as adhesive force that we can see. Adhesion is nothing but the water molecules are going to adheres to the walls of the xylem vessels. I told you, to the containers where they are present. Okay, here it's going to be the xylem vessels that you can see, just because of these bonds which are being strongly being built between the electropositive and electronegative atoms. So this behaves like a very, what you call is a huge long water column which is being built up in the xylem from a root tip to that of the shoot tip, children. And the basic idea behind now is, at the shoot tip, you're having these leaves, and the underneath of the underside of the leaves are having stomata. Now, what happens is your sun actually, what it does is, it is pulling away, it's going to raise the temperatures. And what this sun is going to do is, he is going to lead to a particular process here, that is going to be your transpirational pull now. So he's pulling up the water, and we see this procedure as transpiration. Actually, transpiration is nothing but the evaporation of water, okay? Evaporation of water from the plants through the stomata. So just because of the sun, now what is happening is the evaporation of water happens. So one of the water molecule will be popped up, one of the water molecule from this particular. So let me show you that if this particular water molecule is being popped up because of the sun's transpirational pull, now what happens is all the other water column which is being present will be moved up, will be moved up. So once you pop up one particular molecule, see children, what happens is as you are popping one particular molecule here, all the other water column will be moved up, will be raised up. And again the transpirational pull will be pulling up, popping up one water molecule, and all the other water column is going to move up, move up. So once one water molecule is being popped up by being taken into the environment, the water column which is being built up in the xylem will be moving up. So this is the power, this is the force which is pulling the water column up. Now, I hope you understood that the tension between the water molecules is being created by the transpirational pull of sun, due to which the water molecule lost, and the transpirational, that is your water column, is being moved up further. This is the way the water is being moved from the root to the shoot tips in the tall trees because of the adhesive and the cohesive forces. Or these are the mechanisms that you can see, the transpirational pull, which is playing a major role in the transportation of the water. I hope children you have understood that this is a thing which is root pressure, which is being used in the plants like your herbs and shrubs, where the water can be moved up very easily. But in the tall trees, it's going to be the transpirational pull. Now I gave you a basic idea. Now let me come to explain this particular topic in a bit detailed manner that is going to help in your NEET examination. So let me take the same thing, but I'll elaborate it now. So this is my tree trunk. Now what I'll do is I'll take up this particular root, one particular root, along with a, I'll take up my root hair here. So I'm having a root hair. Now you already learned what is a mechanism. So let me draw this, and later I will draw a cortical cell. I'm only taking few one of the cells, okay? Cortical cells. Now let me take another cell which is being regarded as your endodermis. I'm taking endodermis here. And the other thing what I'll take is I'll be going with the xylem cell, children. I'm going with the xylem cell. So what is happening is, now consider that this is going to be a root, and we have took a transverse section of the root, children. This whole thing what I've drawn here is going to be what we call as a the transverse section of the root. Or let me take like this, such that you, it will be easy for you to understand it basically. So this is going to be my root hair, the epidermal cell. Then I'm going to have this particular cortical cell. Then I'm having the endodermal cell. Then I'm having my xylem cell. Okay, I'll write it for you. So the xylem cell, then I have this endodermal cell. Okay, and I'll take up the cortical cells. There are actually many layers of cortical cells, but I'm making it very fine. And next we have this epidermal cell with that is your root hair, which has been present here. I explained you this particular procedure. Now let me go into this procedure to explain further in a short way, because you understood the mechanism, how it is going to be. So I told you already that the minerals which are being present here, as well as water concentration, is high here. And because of the active transportation process, the minerals are going to enter here, and this mineral concentration increases, thereby reducing the water potential. Now the water potential goes negative, and here the water potential is going to be more. Okay, this is going to be more here. So obviously now what happens is the water is going to flow, the water is going to flow into this particular cell now, because of osmosis. As you know that the water is moving from the high water potential to the low water potential through this semi-permeable membrane, which is going to be osmosis. So now for the first time, you could see in this that there are two particular procedures which are being employed. One is by the active transport. By the active transport, we transported the minerals. Okay, we transported the minerals here. And secondly, thereby what did we do? We have reduced the water potential and made it negative. Then secondly, we did another thing. What was the second thing, children, that we have did was we have created the water gradient potentials here, due to which the moved water moved into the root by a procedure which is being called as osmosis. Okay, this is what that we have seen here. Now what happens later is the same thing that you can see that as you can see that the water which is being present here, the water present is just going on increasing. And now what happens here, the amount of the water potential comparatively will be negative, and as the water is continuously pouring up here, the water potential is going to be higher. So now the water moves from higher potential to the lower potential. So now the same procedure can be seen. But what I need to explain here is, children, there are two mechanisms by which the water can move. Okay, water can move in the plants. So let me, for that particular thing, let me show you the slides here, such that it will be helpful for me to make you understand what are those two mechanisms by which the water moves across. Okay, water moves across. So what is that, we'll see. So let me come to this particular one. Now the thing that we are going to see is, yeah. Yeah, you can see that these are the cells, children. If the water moves across the cytoplasm, okay, if the water is moving across the cytoplasm through the bridge-like connections between the two cells, which is being called as plasmodesmata, if the water moves through the cytoplasm freely through the plasmodesmata, then we should call that as, we are going to call that particular procedure as what? We are going to call this as your synplast. So if it is going to move through the cytoplasm, we should call this as that is synplast mechanism. Or if the water molecules moves through the spaces or the cell wall, okay, if it is going to move across all the cells through the cell wall, then we should call that as what? That as a apoplast. So there are two mechanisms by which the water can move. Either it can move through the cytoplasm, or it can move through the spaces or the cell wall. So this is the way the water is going to get transported. Water is going to get transported. So now what I'll do is I'll explain you this procedure, that now you understood how they are moving. So one is due to the what you call is osmosis process. The water is moving into the cortical cell here. It has moved into the cortical cell, and now you can see that from the cortex to that of the endodermis, cortex to that of the endodermis, now what happens is your water is not allowed to move through the apoplast. What is apoplast? Through the cell wall. Okay, through the cell wall. So you can see that here from this particular cortical cell to that of the epidermis, the water can move by apoplast to the cell wall. It can either move by the symplast also through the cytoplasm, that is plasmodesmata. If they have plasmodesmata, they can easily move in, or they can move across the cell wall also. But now children, in the endodermal cells, what you can see is in their cell wall, we are going to have a waterproof, we are going to have this particular waterproof suberin made structures, which are being called as Casparian strips now. Okay, so this is what is going to be the Casparian strip. This is a waterproof strip. Okay, this has been either made up of suberin, okay, or it's been made up of lignin. Okay, so now what happens is, though the water tries to make a movement, let me show this for you. Though the water tries to make the movement to the cell wall, because of the waterproof or because of the Casparian strip present, the water can't be enabled to move to the cell wall. So now what happens is, from the cortical cells to the endodermal cells, now what happens is, the movement is only through what? It's going to be through the cytoplasm. So if it's going to be through the cytoplasm, what do we call it as? We call this as Syn Plastia. See, now what is happening is, the endo, that is your Casparian strips, which are being present in the endodermal cells here, are not allowing this particular, what we call is, movement through the cell wall. The only thing that through which they can move is going to be the, what we call is, cytoplasm only. So that's the reason we can see that the movement of the water from the cortical area to the endodermal area is going to be only what? It's going to be the one which is going to be the symplast. And here also you can see that the movement is going to be symplastic only. Here also, into the xylem, movement is going to be symplast. But I'll try to explain this, how this is going to happen, children. First, basically, the minerals which have entered here, the minerals which are entering here, will move into the xylem only through active transport, again, as we have seen earlier. So this is going to be through the active transport. Who are moving through the active transport? That is your minerals. So now what happens, as actively you have transported minerals, the mineral increases and the water potential which is there, the number of water molecules is going to be reduced, so it is negative. So here you are having more water, okay. Here the water potential will be more than the water potential here, which is less. So now obviously the water has to move from higher concentration. So the water here from the higher concentration will move into the lower concentration through osmosis process. So once again, what is happening is, the water moves through the symplast through osmosis process. Okay, from where? From here to this particular xylem. And the minerals are being transported. How? It's going to be transported. So let me write it. Water is transported through osmosis, and through active transport, your minerals are being transported. Minerals are being transported. So I hope, children, you have understood the procedure, how the water and minerals are being transported. Okay, so basic idea is going to be active transportation, the cohesion forces, the adhesive forces, as well as the tension created in the plant by the transpirational pull. These are all the mechanisms which have been employed, but the mechanism how the water moves is going to be either through the cytoplasm, or it's going to be through the spaces, or it's going to be through the cell wall. So I hope you all have understood that how the procedure of active transportation has reduced the water potential, logically pulling up the water inside through osmosis, making the water move through osmosis across from root to the shoot tips. And you could even see that how they are going to move in. And the same procedure is being employed throughout. Okay, so this is a procedure, but before that, we even understood that how this particular water molecules are forming a continuous film here, just because of the hydrogen bonds between the electronegative and the electropositive atoms which are being present even in the xylem vessel membranes, to that of your xylem vessel, what you call is, the spaces, the lumen, where the water columns are having the attractive power in between the two of the water molecules of cohesive forces. And coming on to, we even saw about how the root pressure is pulling up. I hope, children, you all have understood this particular procedure. Okay, so what I'll do is, now I'll try to share my screen with you such that I can show you few of the slides which can give you a basic idea regarding these particular topics now. So we already have seen about the structure, that is how the apoplast and symplast are being carried away. And if you are going to look at this, you can see the root hairs, the epidermal cells, the cortical cells, the endodermal cells, and the pericycle cells, then the xylem cells. So if you're going to look at this particular structure, children, this is going to be the endodermal cells. See, these are the endodermal cells, and this is going to be the cortical cells. So from the cortical cells to the endodermal cells, it is only symplast. See, they're only coming across through the plasmodesmata. But what has happened is, here in the endodermal cells, because of the suberin wall or the lignin wall, which is called as Casparian strip, it is not allowing the water molecule. So that you need to understand here. This is what we are trying to see. So both the apoplast and symplast in the root hair cells, in the cortical cells, but in the endodermal cells, it is only the symplast allowed. And later again, you can see the symplast through across the, that is your cytoplasm. It's moving in across the xylem. Again, you can see in the starting of the root hair as well as end where it is going to move from the pericycle to the of your xylem is also going to be again active transport of minerals and osmosis of the water. Okay, children, I hope you all have understood this particular procedure of transportation of water and minerals in the plants. If you have liked this video, please do hit the like button and try to share this channel with many others and subscribe my channel. Thank you all. Thank you.